Hello, church. We're coming into spring, obviously, and our Lenten season and the time preceding Easter, and all those celebrations that we hold have kind of had a monkey wrench thrown into them. But we're doing our thing individually, and we're doing our thing with our families, and trying to follow the rules, but still prepare a little bit for spring. One of the things I've been doing is as the snow's all melted, I was getting excited, as looking forward to getting a garden going and working in that, and something to occupy time and do it in a way that brings some benefits. So I've been getting ready, and we've been working on starting seeds. Maybe some of you do that at home. And the interesting thing is, these are packets of seeds that I've already started. There's tomatoes and peppers, cucumbers, all sorts of different things. And we're starting the ones that take the longest to grow. Some of these, they say they germinate in 7 to 10 days. This is a germinate in 7 to 14 days. This one germinates in 7 to 15 days. Here's one that is 8 to 10 days, a little quicker. And then there's one here that's 15 to 20. That's a tomato. Now you know why we start those early. All the way up to 25 days, but nothing germinates really any quicker than 5 or 6. And I have this starter. You've probably seen those. Some of you have probably used them. If you looked at it, you would see absolutely nothing but little white sticks with a date and a name on them, and the seeds that are planted in there. And the reason you see nothing is because they haven't had time to germinate yet and poke up out of the soil. And there's some biblical truths and some biblical things we can learn. The ancients of biblical times were very familiar with agriculture and how it worked, and putting seeds in the ground and waiting for them to germinate and sprout and then grow to adulthood and then be harvested. And they talked about sowing seed and putting seed in the soil. And it talked, if you remember, Matthew had a parable in there and talked about good soil as opposed to bad soil. The interesting thing is, when you're potting seeds, one of the things we do is we buy soil. That's right, we buy bags of dirt. How sad is that? And the reason we do that is because that soil has been sanitized. And by that I mean there's no weed seeds in it. We're not getting extra peripheral things. So when the seeds of vegetables germinate, they don't have to fight with weed seeds in there too. We see that a little later on in the spring when we get out in the actual garden, right? We start digging, we start planting, and there were a number of years when I grew a garden and I wasn't as diligent as I might have, and I figured, you know what, I gave them a head start on the weeds. They're going to kind of have to fend for themselves after that. But with care, we pull weeds, we hoe, we give our vegetables, or what we're growing, every opportunity to do the best that it can. So we've started them in that kind of soil, and a gardener would say, well, that's good soil. That's good soil because it's pure. There's nothing in it. There's no weeds. There's no peripheral stuff that's going to come up and compete. And we know that the world we live in, we were talking about us as soil for God. And God in Matthew, in chapter 13, in verse 37 and 38, it talked about God as the one who plants the good seed. That's what he said. He planted good seed in each and every one of us. all the things that you would be, all the traits that you have that are positive, all the gifts that you bring with you to the rest of the world, to the rest of your families, to the rest of our church family and community, those are all seeds planted by God. He said, and to give them the best start, you need to eliminate some of the weeds. And he was very specific. People asked him, they said, well, where do the weeds come from? He said, the evil one, the devil, sows weeds in our lives. God sows good seed, and the devil sows weeds. If you've worked in a garden, you might see the parallels there. We sow good seed, and it seems like from nowhere or practically nowhere, weeds pop up and constantly have to be dealt with. And Jesus explained in this parable, he said, hey, I planted really good stuff in you. I would choose that that's what grew in your lives. And when he was further explaining, he said some seed fell on really good soil and produced 10, 20, 30-fold and more. He said, that's what I'm looking for. That's the plus. That's the good thing. He says other seeds fell in soil where they took root, but the weeds of this world choked them out. And sometimes right now, with everything going on in the world, it might seem like, boy, the weeds are getting a tremendous head start on us. That everywhere you look, there's weeds. We've dealt with this pandemic and people getting scared and shortages, and in some cases it's brought out the best in people. The good seed was nurtured, and I've seen care and concern and people reaching out to one another, not physically, but in every other way. This past week I've had phone calls from people that I haven't seen in years, literally, and they called just to say, hey, how are you doing? I've been thinking of you, and I wanted to know, I was thinking of you and praying for you. What a blessing that is. I would encourage you this week, if there's people in that category that you're thinking about, if God brings them to your mind, give them a call. Even if you haven't talked to them in years, I think you'll be very surprised, and I know they would love to hear from you. It's our opportunity to do some garden work in people's lives. By making those kind of calls, you're pulling some weeds. You're preparing some soil. You're letting God's good seed grow in those people's lives. And we want to see that grow. We want to see that expressed everywhere. As we go through the season and make these preparations, I think we're going to find there's some very good lessons we can learn in preparing soil and in nurturing a garden, and in all of those things that the ancient folks that worked the land for sustenance always lived with day by day and knew intimately. And we're going to explore some of those things and some of those principles, sowing and reaping, and within the context of that garden. And I hope you can stay with us the next few weeks. You can learn as we learn, and you can grow as we grow, and you can watch. And we'll put everything out there, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So you'll see the failures in the garden as it's happening, as well as the stuff that does positively. But I encourage you today, nurture that good seed God has put in your life. Care for it. Care for each other. And know that God is the one who makes the garden grow. Like every one of these seeds, the timing is different. Some take longer to grow than others. And be patient with each other. Be patient with yourselves. Know that God loves you, and He prepared your life for a special gift to the rest of us. Well, God bless you and keep you, and I hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful week. Thanks so much. God bless.